Hello there, welcome to another one of my art classes, or paint along videos, whichever you prefer to call it. We are going to be painting this today. This nice scene of Mount Rainier in Washington State. We've got the nice blue sky, we've got this nice Mount Rainier in the background, we've got this forest in the kind of middle ground, and then we've got these trees here in the foreground. So we're going to go from back to front. That's how we're going to do this painting. You'll need a 12 by 16 inch canvas or canvas panel. This is a canvas panel here, you see. This 16 by 12. You'll need a palette. There you see. Got brushes. You'll need, let's get these out so you can see, you need a biggish bronze one here that's going to help us do the sky and fill in bits quickly. You're going to need a fan brush that help us do this sort of stuff here for the leaves and whatnot, and some of this. You're going to need a big one of these liner script, I believe they're called script liner brushes. And then this kind of like medium sort of edged one that we're going to help use to fill in these sides, be fairly accurate with there. Maybe a few little details in here. We're going to use this small one too to add little touches on the end of these leaves, little touches inside here, like there. That's what we're planning to use that one for. So you see here we've got these that you'll be using. And obviously a little water pot for him. And palette, like I say. We've got paints now. I recommend that you use either one of these two sets. Each one can work. This one's slightly more expensive, but the pigment is slightly better, particularly for the white and black. When you're mixing colours or doing things, it makes a bit of a difference having a stronger white and a stronger black for it. This set here is cheaper, and the blue's a little bit smoother than the blue in this one, which is an advantage too. But like I say, the pigment in the white and the black maybe isn't quite as good. But whichever one you prefer, we can make either one work, to be honest. I'm tempted to use this one, but use the white from this one, because that's kind of the ideal collection then. But anyway, we'll get going with that. And obviously we'll need something to wipe our brush on, and then I like to use either vine charcoal, which is easy to rub out, or a little bit of orange chalk like this, which is easy to rub out too. You can either rub it out with your finger, or if it's a little bit coated, then you can actually put a very damp tissue. No, not very damp, very lightly, just a little bit damp tissue, and just wipe it away like that when you put it on. And it's quite useful. Okay, so I'm going to get my paint sorted rather than have you watch me opening a wrapper. It's not going to be that entertaining. You get yourself set up now, and then we'll be ready to start our painting in a second. So pause now if you need to get yourself all set up. If not, then let's get going. Okay, now we're all set up. You can see I've got, like I said, I'll be using this set, but then the white from the other one, because this is a little bit better. It's probably actually cheaper to do that and then get one of these tubes of white than buy that other set. So that might be worth doing. Anyway, we're going to be doing the blue now in the background here, you see, for this sky. So we're going to get our big brush here, the bigger brush. Get a nice load of blue. You will have to, you do these, this is a fresh set, so it needs opening this weird little bit off the end there. There you go. Just going to need a decent amount of white for that. And to make it more of a slightly nicer version of blue, you just add a tiny drop of green. Makes it the sky feel a little bit more warmer. I'll show you, watch. You mix this in. We'll see how this is actually. This is a kind of nice blue. Might need more white though, that's still quite dark. Don't use up too much of your palette here because we're going to be mixing a lot of colours. Just see a tiny dab of green. That must be about enough. Add more white to lighten it up. You may even want to separate some of it off, as I've got quite a lot here, so you don't have to mix in a huge amount. There we go, I think we're ready to do this. What we're going to do here, I don't know if we look here, this, where the mountain is here, is close to halfway, around halfway on this side, and just below halfway this side. But we're going to be mixing, I don't know if you can see here, this is a slightly darker version of blue than this is, because we're going to be adding white. So we want to paint up to somewhere around here with this type of blue here, and then we're going to mix in more white and then go from there below. And you'll want to, with this, let me shift over a second. With this, you'll just want to go side to side, big things, try and get rid of the white fast as possible. That sky is very rich, isn't it? Looks pretty warm here. Right, I think that's roughly the right sort of line I was thinking of there, and now it's time to add more white. Might just brush off a bit, get rid of some of the water. It's just a sponge. Mix in the white here. Get this nice lighter blue. There we go. And we're going to paint roughly down to where this is going to be, so it's just below the half, so there. It's fine to get all this across. And then when you reach this line, you just like smoothly like this go into it, up into it a bit there, then bring some of that paint down, bring some of it up. This is a blending technique where you go, the lines meet, and then you bring some down into there to even that, bring some of the darker hues into this bit, and then you take some of the lighter hues up again, and it kind of evens itself out, and if you do it enough times. There you go, that's kind of got a nice go from the darker blue to a lighter blue. So I'm going to pop my brush in the water there, and we're going to get our vine charcoal or chalk or pencil if you fancy using a pencil instead, and we're just gonna roughly mark out the tree line because this is a bit wet right now, so I don't really want to touch it just yet. We're going to mark out this tree line here very roughly. So if you see, it's about 40% up here, and then if you follow this kind of slight zigzaggy thing there, so we're going to go from somewhere around here. Doesn't have to be exact because we're going to be going up and over it to some degree shortly anyway. So there, just rough. You don't want to go up to the tree level. We're doing where it kind of there bit because the peak of the trees we're going to paint in afterwards. So we're kind of doing the bottom edge where they all kind of are roughly the same height there. And if you feel like this isn't a great sort of you got your drawing slightly wrong, you can rub it out like this. Watch, just get rid of it like that. Sometimes you can blow it away like that. This one dips down here, and then just like a little peak over here there. Right, so there's that, and now what you should do is give this a little moment to dry, seeing it's quite, obviously we just painted it, so give it a second or two to dry, and then we're going to do this drawing on top of it. So whilst we're waiting for this to dry, we can create this sort of purpley colour whilst this blue paint is still wet. So I'm going to go for this medium-y brush here, get a nice scoop of this paint, put it in there. I'm going to get myself some red. Not too much of it because red's quite a powerful colour, like it kind of overtakes other colours. Bit like a loud person, like talking over everyone. That's the equivalent red is sometimes as a colour. See, already that's taken over a lot of that. I'm going to pinch some of this blue. That's probably the similar sort of colour I want, but I do need some more paint to cover all of this, so I'm going to have to mix a slightly bigger section here. Go for another little bit of red. Not too much, there we go. It looks slightly less lavendery and more like a light blue so far, so I'm going to add a hint more red. It's a lot easier to add a little bit than take red away, because then you'll be forever putting more paint on it. There you go, that's kind of a nice purpley, got a lot of the stuff there now. Maybe I want a hint more red, slightly more purple. There you go, just that little bit. Compared to how much red we used, how much blue, look how much the red's made a big difference in it. So it's quite a powerful colour. There you go, so now I've got that ready. I think it's time to see about how dry this is. Should be okay for doing this. So, you need to look at this peak here. You need to try and roughly follow this shape here. If it's not exact, you know, it's not the end of the world. I mean, we're trying to paint Mount Rainier here, but if it's, so long as it's like a nice looking mountain, you know, it's okay. But we're going to look to do, you need to look whereabouts you want your peak to be. Roughly the peak is somewhere around the center, and if you look, it's about maybe 80% up in the painting. So if you want to, it's probably a good idea to put whereabouts you want your peak to be, which mine is going to be somewhere around there. Where do you want this bit to be on? That's roughly halfway, so it's going to be somewhere around there. This little secondary peak here, it's good to mark it. How far away is it? It's about a quarter of the way in this way from here, so a quarter of the way in here, and like I say, about 2/3 up. So we're looking 2/3 about here, about a quarter of the way somewhere around there. So there we go, we've got few little markers to help us kind of reach in following the shape. So if we start now, roughly this tree line we had here, so I don't know where yours is, but mine's a little bit higher. This white bit will be a little bit higher, so we'll be starting from here just above this blue bit there, and it's kind of a rough uneven line upwards, not quite 45-degree angle straight like that, but it's not too far away, is it? So there's like a peak there. There's a little divot here, there, and then it goes up slightly steeper around this edge. We're looking to do around there. It follows at an angle for a bit, like much lower bit there, then it dips slightly. See, I've already gone slightly bit awry here. This bit should be there for me, I think, and then starting this descent there and then up more. Because there's this little peak there. No, I don't know about you, I feel like this should be more out here. If you made it a bit small like I've done, then you can paint over it and make it bigger. And make it, you know, get rid of these orange bits when you make it bigger. If your drawing is too big to begin with, you're going to have to draw the smaller version you want, and then wait till towards the end, or at least until we painted this bit in, and then it's the purpley colours dried, and then rub it out with a little damp bit of tissue paper. Yeah, I think this is a steeper decline. There we go. I think that's a slightly nicer version of that mountain there. And it looks a slightly more rounded at the top there. Not completely rounded, but there. So it's going to roughly be my mountain there. So I'm going to, if you're not finished with your drawing yet, pause it and finish with your drawing. Keep an eye on this kind of, you can always pause it right now if you want to try and make sure that you get this sort of shape in. I've done that now, so I'm ready to move on to the painting part. If you are too, then let's go. If not, then pause looking at it here. Okay, now I'm going to move on with this. I've got my purple. I'm using this like medium-y brush here, and I'm just literally getting the paint on like this. Just follow roughly the contours that we've done. I'm doing it slightly my under bit and then seeing how I like it when it's done. Then I can always make it slightly bigger if I feel it needs to be slightly bigger. Hell of a view, isn't it? If your paint isn't too exact like on this bit in terms of there being slight little bits of blue showing through here, it's not the end of the world. We're going over it in slightly darker colours, and then obviously the white. We've got to add some dark to make it look like the shadowy parts of like the rock edges in here, and then obviously the snow on top of that. So not to worry if there are little bits shining through underneath. There doesn't need to be too much precision in terms of your brush strokes here. You're just wanting to get rid of the white or the blue, whichever one you're painting over. Just get rid of the colour. How's that looking in comparison to this rock edge? It's looking pretty similar. I think this bit needs to be smoothed out a little bit there. And maybe raised slightly there. But I think I don't want to do too much more work on that bit of it. Now we're going to use some red, maybe not that much. Bring in a little bit of this colour here. A little bit of red to add more red to the general thing. Add a bit of white. That's very light. I'm going to add a bit of blue if you've got some ready and available like I have there. And I want to bring this up into it, maybe a little bit watery too, so there's not too much effect. And just add highlights of different type of... Maybe I'll switch to my smaller brush actually, that's a bit big, that mark. Because you see here, there's like little bits where there's different shades of purple in there. What I'm trying to do is something similar to that. My dog just had a bad dream. Don't worry about that. I just glanced over at him. He's alright. You will get some paint on the brush from the darker stuff we just had underneath it, because obviously it's still wet. Can be fairly sporadic here, because without any real pattern, holding it quite loosely on the end of the brush like here. Like if I was more controlled, I'd be holding it here, but I'm being a bit loose with it, so I'm holding it here and just kind of getting it on. We're going over some dark bits in a second too, so it's fine. Look more specifically where there's going to be areas where some light stuff's going to be there. There's this bit here. I'm leaving the kind of darker areas where I think the white's going to be, because we're going to be going over these bits with white obviously for this. Still continuing getting some of these mountain range bits on. Also, if your blue isn't wet, mine's still wet, but if it isn't, dab a little bit of water in, clean your brush off first, dab a bit of water in, and then mix it round to try and keep it wet, because you see there's a little bit of blue where the mountain range here becomes slightly bluer towards the bottom, so I'm going to add a little bit of blue on to that in a second. Mine's fine because it's still pretty damp. Maybe like me where you want to move your water thing if you want. I'm alright with it there, but if it's kind of getting in the way slightly here. Just glancing over at my reference thing, trying to get a good sense of where it's at that I'm trying to paint. Should probably make it clear for you guys too, although I can post a thing for where to get this image if you want it. May look a little bit strange right now, but when you add an extra layer of the darker bits and then add the white afterwards, it will start to come together. So it takes a while. And where does it go lighter? It's going to be somewhere around here where it starts becoming more blue slightly. So I'm going to switch over to blue. You wipe your brush off. I just wiped out my shorts because I covered in paint. But you wipe off your brush if you want, or maybe even switch to this medium one again. Forget a bit of blue on here. Might even be getting a bit of blue and then mixing it with one of these colours there, like that, just so that it has a familiar tone to it. See. Again, I'm holding it quite loosely. I don't want to get too much, and it doesn't matter if the colour isn't too clear, if it's faint. If anything, it kind of blends then nicely with what's already here. You see, I'm not trying to do precise big blobs of colour, just kind of get it in there and get different shades into the land. Again, I'm picking up some more paint here for this bit. There's some in front here. Feel free to drag it below here because this would go down below here where it's at. It's okay, we're going to paint over the green anyway. It's best to have spots where you then paint over it than have white spots where something was meant to be and then hope that you can remix the colour to fill it in nicely. There's a bit of blue in here, as you can tell too, where this curve's going to be. An occasional dab of blue in the mountainside. Not much, it's literally just a tiny touch. You can use this one or the smaller brush for it. Just there, whilst you've got it on the ready to go. Just mainly around the edges. So that's a lot of paint. Don't want that bright blue on it there. It's also getting some water on as you want. Not too much water, but just a little bit, that the paint isn't quite as thick or as prominent. Now you're going to want to get some of your lighter blue in the sky to mix in with the reddish sort of colour you had here there. Just a little bit, not too much, just to bring the tones. And then you see this side of it slightly lighter, where because the light's going to be on this side, so this side here is going to have a little bit more of a lighter tone to it there. Right, now I think we're ready to go over to our little script liner here. I'm going to get some black. Going to add it just there. Mix in some of this. You probably don't want to mix with this brush because it's thin, it doesn't really do the job. This one's a bit better for that sort of thing. Mix in here, or even mix in there because you don't want it too dark. There you go. We're trying to create a darker bit of this, so then we can put darker bits into the mountainside. And because it's further away, things will get lighter further away, so you don't want them to be too black either, because this needs to be more of a solid colour, as is about depth. So when you push something further back, it'll be the colour won't be as bright. The black won't appear as black. It'll be hazier and lighter. So it's going to be something akin to this, like dark grey here, rather than in pure black, like this sort of tree would be when we paint it. And it just adds depth to the painting, makes it look more 3D by doing the darker colours at the back lighter than they are at the front, because it makes your eye travel almost. So anyway, I'm going to use this, and I'm going to be very delicate. I'm holding it kind of slightly more towards the front, so it's fairly controlled, and I'm just going to add little bits around here to indicate shadows and things in the mountainside. Like where there's rocks and little divots and things. Doesn't have to be too precise here. You're thinking about the contours of where you want your land to be, and where the snow's going to be. This one, see, there's a nice shadow peak here. This bit's quite light here. This bit's where it's light away from the sun. So this is kind of there. Often you're probably going to be looking to showcase it more on this side than this side, based on the fact the light is like light source. The sun would be on, it's supposed to be coming from this direction. Don't want to get too much paint on your brush for it. And you can let it dry if you'd prefer. You can let this bit dry, but I'm doing it whilst it's wet. And it's good to have different types of strokes in this. You don't really want everything to be the same or look symmetrical, because none of these mountainside creeks and ridges and things would be symmetrical. They'd all be different, particularly with different types of snowfall around in them. So you need to make sure they're all different. You've got small bits, you've got ones that curve slightly one way or the other, etc. The ones that are just tiny specks. Obviously, so far in the distance, we're not painting every single thing, we're just giving the impression that there are different, there are dark sides and light sides from where there's canyons and, well, not canyons, but ridges and various little in the mountainside. It's up to you as well. If you feel more comfortable with the smaller brush for this, then feel free to use that. It's one of them. Some of the brushes, sometimes you can do similar sort of effects with different types of brushes, and it's just how comfortable you are with it. Like if you feel like you're going to get you're quite bad at picking up a lot of paint, then sometimes having a different type of brush helps you, because it's smaller, so it doesn't pick up as much paint to begin with for you then to overly spread around. Because this, we don't want too much paint on the brush. That's why occasionally you'll see me wipe like that to get some off, because I don't want to have too big crazy marks on there. There you go, it's starting to look a little bit more like a mountainside now. Don't want to do too many on this side, with it being the side the sun's going to be on, and there's a lot of snow there, and the trees going to be coming up through here as well, so there's probably not much point doing too much. But it does need some. There's still going to be shadows and dark parts that the sun isn't hitting. This is indicative of a ridge here where it's facing up out the ground here, and the light side is this side and the dark side is here. So this side will want a bit more dark. You can even smudge it with your finger if you don't mind, so it doesn't get too dark. There you go. You don't want a pure black line there. I'll switch over to my small brush to add a few different marks. If you feel you put on too much, you can just smudge it away with your finger like that. Take some of the paint off, you see. Nearly done with this bit now. I think that's about that, and you probably want to let this dry so then the white doesn't mix in with the darker colours, and then it becomes like a mid-range, like say these darker things, if you white mixed with the dark grey, it might become just a mid-range grey, and you don't want it, you want it to look properly white. So let's leave that to dry, and we can do the section here for the trees, the green. So obviously you can use blue if you need to, or if you've got any of this paint you've got left, you can use that. It's up to you, whichever your preference would be. I think I'll use some of this leftover blue here, seeing as it's still wet. I'm going to get my yellow because we've got some of this too, actually. Forgot I had the green, that's why. Okay, get some green. Not too much, because we were going to be making it lighter. And then just a bit of yellow. There we go. I'm going to go for this medium-y one again, and then just a little scoop of the blue if you've still got some left. If you haven't, it's okay if you don't. I'm just going to get a small scoop of that to mix it all in. Also, because we're going to be doing the middle ground, again, you won't want this green to be quite as bright as this green, or apparent, because we did because of the haze and whatnot of it being further in the distance. So if you do have some of this left, just a tiny bit of this lavendery, ready, light red sort of colour in there, and mix it in, because green and red are opposite colours. It will slightly subdue the intensity of the colour. And where that means, whereas rather than a bright saturated colour, it will become slightly paler. It gives that indication of it being further away. I'm going to grab a little bit more. There we go, and then put it on. You can go right to the line, because one, we're painting over this in white, and two, like I say, we're going over this up with when we're actually painting the tops of these trees. This is just an opening layer sort of thing on this. You don't have to, there's no specific sort of brush stroke like direction that you need to think about or worry about. You just purely want to get the this down. Get rid of the white, that's all we're trying to do right now. There we go, got rid of all that white there, that's good. I know you can tell it's not a particularly thick dose of paint on it, but that's fine. Like I say, we're going over it shortly to kind of create the trees, so it's fine. Cool, and that now. And now might be a good time to get rid of this orange line before we put the white in. Because if you wait till after we've done it, then there's a chance that if you've, I don't know what you've used, if you've used pencil, then you probably might not need to do anything. But I've used this, so I will want to wipe this down before putting the white on top of it, because then if I put the white first and then get rid of it, then there's a chance the edges might look slightly orange. So I'm gonna pause the video and go get a little tissue wipe for it. Keep going with yours as you do. So I've wiped off the orange chalk. Then, like I said, I'm about to move on to the white now, but if you're still working on this green, then feel free to pause it until you're done with that. Okay, I'm ready to move on. First of all, I'm going to need to wipe off this brush very well. Do not want green from just doing that up in the when I'm trying to get nice, clear, crisp whites. So it's very important to clean off your brush best you can. I think I've got most of it off. Still hints of it. Right, now it's time for some white. I'm going to put a little pile here as it's pure white. Don't need to mix anything, so don't need to take over a big space in my already decreasing palette room. So we're going to get a nice mat on the brush, and we're going to go for the bits where the white is mainly there, like this little channel here. You don't have to go to the edge. I'm not going to go to the edge. I'm going to go to the edge with the smaller brush. I just want to get in some of the main areas. You see there's that, there's a little bit here, like this is a little mountain peak that is evident. There, where else do we go after you come around here? It then goes up. There's a bit coming down. You don't want to touch the canvas too heavily, because we do want to get we do want to kind of go over this again to do the brighter bits brighter. Right, this here, that hill range somewhere over here, so this is going to be quite white. This is where it's good to keep checking what there is here and where you want to put the white. Don't let this brush touch the green in case there's still some wet green there. You don't want to then get green on the brush and then bring it up here. So we're looking, checking, getting an idea where I want to put this. So I have to be exact, you know, this isn't, you know, it's one of those things where if you get a stray of bit of snow somewhere where it isn't, it's not the end of the world. I'm sure it changes day by day anyway on Mount Rainier whereabouts the snow is. Any bits like here where there's going to be quite small brush marks, I'd say for when we switch over to the smaller brush. This is just trying to get some of the main areas in. think I'm going to leave it roughly there now and then move on to the smaller brush. Trying my best here to give you a good angle of, you know, looking at this reference photo and then looking at me doing this, but you know, if I'm not quite focusing at the right time for you, I apologise. To start, I'm going to do this tip there, that looks nice and bright. This mountain side all the way. If you're doing this bit, there's a chance that this the green paint has not yet dried. It hasn't yet for me, because you can see that. If it's a big issue for you, then you know, wait for it to dry and wash this off before continuing, you know, pausing it now and then doing that. Or if you're gonna keep going, just be careful whereabouts you place your hand when you're resting. I mean, I'm not bothered about a bit of paint, I'm used to it, but you might not be. This is acrylic, so it's not toxic or anything like that. It's water based. These are all harmless paint. I'm not using any crazy stuff like terps or anything like you would in oil. It's all basic water based paint. There you go, it's starting to look like a nice area up here. To add a little bits in this bit. It's best to get this stuff down, and then if there's bits that you want to make a little bit brighter, like I want to make this bit's quite bright, this bit's quite bright, I'll do that at the end of doing, once I've got this main body of paint down, and then an extra layer on top of that will just make the white a little bit more present and thicker. But it's best whilst we go in to keep getting this stuff down. These areas of snow. I'm holding it relatively controlled. I don't know if you notice how you're holding it. I'm holding it relatively controlled. Not here where it will be loose, but not here like it's micro details. Just kind of somewhere in the middle. Maybe slightly more forward, because I'm not trying to make big crazy marks. But I'm not trying to make exact symmetrical marks either. Because, you know, like I say, the nature is not symmetrical. You know, there's angles and rock faces that are done through rainwater and wind and all that, and it's never going to be the same all over. So it looks more realistic when they're a bit more random and they're non-symmetrical. It's a pretty cool view, isn't it? Looking at these mountain ranges thinking they look both terrifying to climb and also marvellous. Don't know how yours is coming along. I hope it's coming along nicely. I'm kind of getting more pleased with how this is looking right now. Seeing this mountain range take shape. From this one, you can't see it here, but I remember from the initial thing, it like goes over like this. Yeah. They head towards the base of the lines, almost like that. You wonder why I'm a bit so-so with what I'm doing here? It's because you're seeing this, and in the original, the reference photo that this painting's from. This is like mist, and this is mist, like, you know, where you see mist in the mountains, like that is kind of what that is in the reference photo. Which, if you want to create a mist, all you do is you get some white, you water it down slightly. Well, this is a very rudimentary version. You can do better versions of mist, but you just kind of circle it in slightly like this. Just gives the impression that the air's changed slightly around there. Because we're not trying to do a crazy in-depth effect here either, because one, we don't have time for it with this being a limited time lesson, and two, we've still got a lot to do in its background. It's like the mountain's obviously there, but it's the stuff right at the front is kind of what's also a major part of the scene. Because this is the forest that leads you to the mountain. This is me just trying to work in some sense of air circulating. Well, you do want it to be slightly translucent, which is why we're using watery paint. And this isn't very hard, this is just slightly in case. Not pushing very hard in case you've got like big giant bunches of white and it just spreads it over it. Okay. So I think we need to dab more on this side here. But after this, I'm not sure how much more this side, this bit needs. You can then go to brightening up areas that are semi-dried, like this bit. Right, I think we're gonna leave that at that right now. Although actually, wait, it's always like that. Let me just do that and then I'll go, oh, I just spot that bit. I just want to do an extra bit there. Now, what I'd like you to do is get either this or this, whichever one you want, whichever you feel more comfortable with. And we're gonna add a little bit of black, if yours is still okay, to this green we've got. If not, then obviously put some more black on and just do that. Mix it in very lightly. We're just trying to get a slightly darker shade of green going. There we go. And we're just gonna start by going, I don't want it to be one straight line, I almost want you to almost dot it. And do them at varying heights too. And of different distance to each other as well. Don't want to make it too thick, and you don't want to make it like a clear, straightforward, like triangular shape. You want to make it a bit unsymmetrical, non-symmetrical. It looks a little bit random here, but that's the intention. There's lots of little trees overlapping in the distance. Occasionally one will poke out above the rest, but not by too much. Yeah, they're almost like dotted lines you're doing up. We'll go out with the fan brush to turn them more into trees. Right, now we're going to get our fan brush. If you've got quite a wide one like me here, like this one's quite wide, and this top bit we're going to be doing this bit with this. So I'm only really going to get the edges there with it, and then watch, you'll see. Starts to make this effect of that sort of a tree that we're after, the pine tree. Because if you use the whole thing, then it will look, you know, basically if there's a tree going up like that, the bottom ones will look like the top ones if you just do straight with the big end, so with all of it. So just the corners we're hoping to do right now. Make sure you don't get too much paint on, because you don't want to be making really big thick marks. These are just going to be the tops of the trees, and they're not going to be too dense in leaves therefore. Hope they're not too evenly apart, because obviously don't really want that. I'm going to go over this again in a second with a kind of darker colour with the black, because look, it kind of adds a bit more substance to the trees too. Some of them might look already like good end of trees and they don't need much in the air with regard to messing around with this fan brush. This gap here where it dips down, you can do a little bit wider here because there is a gap where you might see the width of the trees a little bit more there. Right, there's that. Now, I'm going to wipe it off. I get some black here. Get a little bit of water. Get some of the green. Get a little bit more of the black there. Try and make a darker colour there. Again, because this is the middle ground, we don't want to make it completely black. Because these ones coming, this that's right in front of this tree with the face, where the shadow is this way, the light being that way, that's going to be dark. This is dark, dark. These are right at the front of the image that we, you know, the view that we're looking through. So we don't want it to be completely black, because then that kind of blends in which is foreground, which is middle ground. So we're trying to dilute the darkness of this by mixing it with the green. So it just looks like a very dark green. So yeah, getting some random ones of these in, differing lengths, differing distances apart. You don't have to be too precise with this bit. Just try not to go over, just don't really mess around with the top of these that we've just done. There's a chance if you've got a brand new fan brush that it kind of sticks together more. If so, you have to concentrate on getting paint off the brush first. Because this, I've used this before, so it's not quite as, it doesn't yet go together as a nice clear fan, which when you get a newer brush, it might well do that. Like I've got a slightly newer fan brush here, and it kind of all goes together when you put paint on it. So you don't really want that, so you have to get some paint off the brush initially so it doesn't all get together and become one constant line. You want to have that slight breakup in the colour. So I mean, it's quite thick there now. If this happens, you have to be quite careful, be more delicate with it when you putting it down. If you feel like you've got a lot of paint on the brush and it's not quite doing that textured type look that we did with the top bits there. So we're getting something roughly like that. We don't want to paint in everything, and we're not even going to be trying to paint in everything. We're just going to give vague impressions. So then we're going to do the doing this side to side bit here to indicate different leaf structures of all these various trees in this forest. There we go. Again, I'm holding it quite loose at the back because I don't want to get it too precise, because it won't look quite as good then. You kind of, the randomness of it that you get from being quite loose. One, it helps it go faster, so you're not like holding it like that forever. It also means that you get the more random marks, the better. May have to put more in. I'm having to put more in here. If you need to, then obviously that's green and then that's black, and you're just making it so you're making a dark green if you happen to run out of paint. You might want to use a side bit here to do the darker side. You know, where if the sun's coming this way, so then this side of the side of the tree on this side will be shadowy because the light's coming down, and then if you like this side's light, this side just is dark. So I'm doing it where these side of the trees are a little bit darker. You can switch to the smaller brush, this one if you prefer, or if you want to do these sort of effects once you kind of got the mainstay of this on the go. Mostly done. Don't know about you, it's starting to look like a nice forest now. Just keeping up, trying to get this sort of effective leaves in there. You kind of, once you've done a few, you can kind of get a feel for it. And if you're still not sure exactly what you're doing with it, feel free to do it in the areas where this tree's going to be, like here. It would help you kind of get the marks that you kind of want in an area that we're going to paint over anyway. So if you get it not quite to your liking, then it's not a big deal. Going to be adding shadowy dark elements at the bottom here, so I'm not really taking it all the way to the bottom, because you see here, kind of go over it in shadows to indicate the shadows from all this sort of, from this tree here, this tree here, or where these shadows would be right in front. So I'm not really going to bother taking it all the way to the bottom, and you don't have to either. Well, you can, it's up to you. So that, I think, is pretty much the dark side of this forest. I'm going to add a lighter colour now, because there is a lighter colour in here, kind of greeny yellow colour, for where the sun is hitting it on the other, hitting the leaves. Typically going to be on this side, but as they're all kind of intermingled and there's so many, you're not going to be specifically looking on this side, because, you know, these are trees on trees on trees, so light from one bit behind looks like on this side of one a little bit closer. Basically, there's too many for you to definitively say which side of the tree on which tree. So I'm going to get some white here, get some yellow here, mix it in with this green that I've got. If you've not got any green left, then feel free to add a little bit of green, a little bit of this green to the yellow, but mostly yellow in that case. It needs to be a brighter, lighter colour, so it works well for this kind of sense of highlights. And then use the edge of it again. You don't want to get too much on the brush, and then just do it like you're kind of doing the ends of certain bits. Like these on the top, you would can definitively have a light side, because these are touching the light here. The light would hit them, and you can see whereabouts would be the side that the light hits these leaves. Oops, if you do it like that, you can just rub it out slightly. I think I want to switch to this small brush now. Wipe it off if you've got paint on it, and then just little dabs of the light green here and there. Holding it fairly loosely again, not too precise, but enough to be able to put some nice colour down. Just tiny dabs here and there, you don't want anything too much. So there's some indication that there's a few different shades of green going on and that the light is hitting some branches in there, in this melee. There's trees. Add a little bit more. Don't need too much more for this bit. A little bit of that green paint, not much. Same with the yellow. Even a dab of white. Might be a bit too much paint on the brush. Very like tiny lines in different sections of leaves that may get a bit of sunlight. Just a few more of these, I think. I don't need too many. I don't want to do it on every single tree as well, because some trees will be in front of other trees, will hide it getting the light. Oops, a bit too much there. Bit too much paint on my brush. There. Just doing a little bit more on these sides of the that be facing this side. These parts of the tree facing this way. Just gives that extra sense of light hitting them. A few occasional dots here and there, nothing much. Right, I think that's those trees done. I think it's time to think about the bigger stuff in the foreground now. We do have this big tree though that you may want to get in first. It's kind of in the centre. I'm just going to literally dab in roughly where it's going to be, just there. And literally just get some of these more pure black going on here. Might need switch to this actually with the black, get some lines coming round in black definitively, and then you can add these leaves on top of that. It's a similar technique we're going to use for these on here. I'll need a little bit more black. Smaller in a little bit, but I will be using it. Don't want to get too much paint on it, and then you just want to this to add a little bit of texture to it. Now we're going to get this medium-y brush here, get some black there, mix it with a dab of water, and just try and add the darker shadowy elements of where this part of the forest is darker. Oops. You will want to occasionally darken up some elements of these bits in front of it. Not too much, not too crazy. Some of the stuff will definitely be darker around. These are like shadowy. When you water down a bit of black, so it's a bit translucent. It's dark but translucent. It's good for creating these shadowy effects. Just darkening up the foreground a bit then, this is what we're doing. You're like me, you may need to lift the canvas up a bit like this, or canvas panel in this case, canvas up a little bit just to get these dark shades of here. Imagine that there's little bushes here too, like there we're going to be painting in when we add a few green highlights shortly. Just little dabs of little things. You see there's a few bush type things in here. They're not completely clear what they are, but they're suggested. Right, I'm leaning towards leaving it at that for a second. And then let's try and figure out how the hell we're going to do this. I'm going to go back to the chalk now. It's up to you if you want to wait until this paint is dried, or if you don't mind and you want to go for it now. I'm tempted to go for it now. I'm going to start by doing this line here. Look how close it is to the edge of the canvas here, and the sort of width I'm doing it. It's maybe 3/4 of an inch sort of out here, so I'm going to do that there, and then it's about 1 inch wide, this tree thing, but it's not the end of the world if you do that. Try and make it a little bit too small, so then if you go over the edge you can then paint away this chalk, if that's what you use, or charcoal. If you're just using pencil, then you don't need to worry, just go up to the line. There's that. this fallen tree here is, if you look where this is here, it's just underneath where the curve is. So you see my curve here, so it would be maybe about here. Starts there. And then it's again, it's about an inch, maybe just over an inch wide. You can paint that. You can paint this bit sort it out. If you got like me now, you can even do that down. Okay, and then we've got this big tree. Now this is going to be the big giant thing in there. If you want to look whereabouts it is in relation to the entire canvas. You got this one, this line is roughly, I'd say, 3/4 of the way across, 1/4 in. So if you do that to there to there, it's roughly about 1/4 of the way in, and it's about 1.5 inches wide, roughly. That's what I'd say from looking at it. So my thing would be about 1/4 of the way in. Feel free to make little marks. Maybe best at the bottom actually as you're painting over it, but little mark there. That's roughly where I want to put that. Big tree. And then it's going to be to about here for me. I'm going to do it a little bit less than it is so I can paint right to the edge, so I don't have to wipe down this chalk. I'm sure that's a delightful sound. Now I'm going to go with black mostly, maybe add a little bit of white to make it sort of greyer colour. Just going to get this medium-y brush, just literally get it, paint over it. If you're worried about going over the edge, then feel free to be a bit more conservative with how far, you know, how far out from the center you go. You might want to just do the middle strip with this and then do the outer edges with the smaller brush if you're not so confident in your brush work, your brush strokes. I'm gonna just do it with this because the tree won't be completely symmetrical, a completely straight line anyway, because it's gonna have little bumps where divots, you know, and cracks and birds doing stuff to the trees and bits of bark falling off, etc. It's not going to be completely, and little growths and whatnot. The tree won't be completely straight anyway, so it's fine to just paint it like this. There is an option if you struggle doing lines at that weird angle like I was doing then, to turn it on its side so you can do the line a little bit easier. That's what I'm doing. I think I will still have to use the wipe thing, wet wipe or tissue with a bit of water on it to get rid of this chalk. There you go, fairly happy with that one. You can always switch it over now if you want. I'm okay for the minute, enjoying doing this angle so I can get every little bit I need. This one's going to be staggered because this is where there's a broken tree, so you don't want it to be a completely flat line. If you don't fancy making those marks with this brush, you can, like I say, use a smaller one to help you get those little weird suggestions of the tree having fallen. So a bit more of a jaggedy, uneven edge. Excuse the jump cut there, I had to change the battery on the camera. And I tipped my painting the right way up in that moment too. Mainly to take a side-by-side photo of, you know, an art in progress sort of thing. We're still going on getting this black down, try and get it nice and dark. We've been mixing matching with the brushes quite a lot today, a little bit more than I normally do. I'm going to tip this over again. I'm struggling with that edge because of the angle with being right-handed on that. But it's not the end of the world, like I say, it's fine. And I'm painting over this stuff anyway when we do the leaves, the branches shortly. Right, I'm going to switch to this small brush now. Whilst we're here, I feel like, and I've got some of this green, I feel like dabbing and just a few bits on this bit, like like some genuinely little bright spots on the leaves. Nothing more than the occasional dab there. And only on that side. Up to a point. And these little bushes in and around that are gonna have a bit of green on them. And just weird little doesn't even need to be, you know, concrete clear lines, just a suggestion that there's some sort of foliage going on there. You know, forest floors do have various plants growing on them. Just the occasional dot, just indicate leaves are happening there. There you go. I think that's that, and it looks more like a good solid tree close by. Now, I want to get some of the white. I don't know if you've got white left over. I'm getting some of this white. Getting some of this black. Not much of it. Adding a little bit of water. I'm going to do, using this brush, we're going to do some of the lighter marks in the tree trunk. Emphasis more on this side where the light kind of is. We just want to make them a little bit random, not too random. And we also want to use our finger a bit because the paint's wet and it's semi-translucent. We can slightly dull the colour. Well, much I must have green on my thing there. Can slightly dull the colour. By dabbing it with your finger, it looks less pronounced then. Look at that. Starting to look like a textured tree there. Going to do the same again with the other trees. I'm going to start on this side, so as it's probably drier actually, and go right to the edge as it's going to be where the light hits the tree more. add in a bit more there. If you feel like you've added too much of this stuff, you can either use my finger to kind of smudge out some of the paint if you want, or you can just wait and do that kind of shadowy bit that we did earlier with mixed black and a little bit of water to make a translucence, and then just go over it, and that makes it darker again. I'm just adding. So this is where you don't want to pull too hard, because that's the bit where this paint, the black underneath, hadn't dried completely, and I pulled some of the black off too, that you could see the green underneath. We'll need to. If you do that, you may need to touch it up a bit, like how I've just had to. Just having that crazy sound, if you just heard it, is my dog Shane beneath my feet snoring. Oh, if I open these two up, you'll see a dog there, and he is snoring quite loudly. So it's not my stomach grumbling, if you heard it and wondered what it was. He always tries to get featured on these videos. There we go. Touch up with a little bit more black to add texture. See, that's got a nice texture to it, this tree. You may want to add another hint of a lighter dab of something on this side. I'm just doing it very subtly, not much. He's still snoring away. I don't know if you can hear it. There you go, and onto this big tree. This has got some mainly on the side. This tree's a bit too straight, I think. I think it needs some different sort of bits on it. There you go, just little subtle bits there just to make it look not completely a straight tree, which is kind of what we're after there, to make it look realistic, not perfectly straight. Just adding an extra bit to this trunk there. There you go. Now I'm back to this lighter colour. I think I need some more white. The light bits on this are lighter than normal, so and it is going to mix with the black that I just put down, so that's fine. I already know. Again, I'm holding it quite loosely here. I don't want anything too symmetrical or too precisely, you know, like a specific shape or marks that look exactly like each other. Like symmetrical dots or something. You get a bit of black on your brush doing this, you may need to wipe it off. The contrasts are definitely going to be more prevalent the closer to us it is. This is why on this tree the darks on the lights are particularly bright, because this is supposed to indicate this tree here is right in front of us. It's a good job I enjoy painting this, and it's a lovely view, because having someone snoring so loudly beneath my feet, it could be off-putting. In case anyone is interested, if you go to my website robbiepotterart.com, you can actually see portrait of my dog Shane, including many of my other original artworks and other commissions that I've done. You know, I am open to commissions. I have painted a few people's dogs before, not their actual dogs, but paintings of their dogs. So yeah, that's Robbie Potter Art if you want to see some, or see some of them on my social media, which is at Robbie Potter Art also. I actually put up a video quite recently of Shane on one of them, I believe, his artwork with his one of his songs that kind of best suits him. Right, I'm just creating a little bit of darker stuff here to try and darken out this bit where it's a bit too light for my liking. And too big the marks too. I kind of want to make little dark black marks here, in here, just to the dark side of where some of these lighter spots are. I think we're virtually done with this though, and we're ready to move on to the big giant leaves, which is the big crazy part really, isn't it? Not crazy, but like the bit that's pretty eye-catching. This here. So what we're going to do, I'm going to get our script brush, some black paint, pure black, can dip it in water if you want it to run a bit smoother, and just literally draw faint lines where you want the branches to be. Like I want, where does it go over here? It goes right the way over here, this one, you see, about 80% into the canvas from, well, from this side, so 20% this way, so it's somewhere over here where this bit is. So I'm going to draw, just dab in that, then roughly kind of goes out there. It's going to be some underline there. And there's one kind of going a diagonal virtually down to here. It kind of goes, and it's quite thick and dense there. Don't really want it interfering with the mounting, if possible. I mean, it's tiny bit over there, but that's not really by choice. That was more the marks that I think I made, and it needed to help make it look realistic and cover something. And this one, this is like on the opposite side of the tree, like the part furthest away from us over there. This bit cuts across in front of it this way. See this, we're getting these all in here. I'm just using this to make thin little lines. We're going to go over it all shortly with the fan brush to kind of give a fluffy texture to all these branches. Just want to paint in roughly whereabouts we want them to begin with. Okay, now I think it's time for the fan brush. And I don't know about you, I think I need a bit more black paint here. We're going for pretty much pure black with a little bit of dab of water in there so it's so it runs quite smoothly. But you also don't want to get too much on your brush because we don't want to overly saturate it, and you don't want too much water on there either, just for general sake, so it doesn't run down the thing. So wipe it off like I did then, and then Just going to add some of these lines over the top of this, imagining they're coming out at slightly different angles. It's fine to do it at different angles like this, you see. You don't want to cover all of it either. You need to see some sign of the blue in the background. That's why we roughly put in whereabouts we want them, but not going crazy covering the entire area. There you go, we're just working this same effect into this. Right, let's have a bit more careful now. Coming down this way, this branch coming down this way. You kind of want to set the pattern off this way. Just being careful. The further we get down here, the more cautious we're going to have to be. I'm going to go with the side bit on these. There you go. Still going, enjoying these ones drooping right down in front of us here. May need more black. I think I might need more black in this area. In my palette now. Yep, slightly more black required. And wipe it off. There you go, that I think is now ready for some of the green to come in over the top. Highlights for the leaves. Okay. My palette is looking pretty full. I think I'm going to turn it round and use this. I'm going to need a nice bright green, so I'm going to need some of that. Nice chunky yellow. And a bit of white. I've got some white left over here, so I'm going to use that. Cleaning off the brush because I want to mix it using this one. How do you think it's looking? Oh. Hope you're pretty happy with your mark. Feel free to pause it and continue doing these if you feel like, you know, you're not quite at the stage for green yet. I know it still doesn't look quite like much, but hopefully it'll, when we put this green in, it'll make it pop. The leaves will like come out and be easier, and the whole thing will just look a little bit livelier and closer and all that good stuff. That's nice. I think we need more white. I'm going to mix it in there. Bring some white. There you go, and some yellow. Nice bright yellow to it. Maybe I'll do this bit as the main bit and then that one as the highlights. So I don't know if you can see, I did 2 different layers of green when I did this reference painting. So this will be 1 and that will be 2. think we're ready to go on this. You mix into it, you got two nice types of green that are different from these ones, but you like the look of for these. They don't look too crazy either. You don't want them to look too... You don't want like a neon green or something crazy. You know, just something that looks semi-realistic on a bright day for leaves. Like I've got these, I'm going to dab it on. Some of these look a bit bright for my liking. I'm going to dab this, and then when I go over them with the highlight later on, it'll look like there's even more types of green in there. It's also good to occasionally do one of these in slightly different directions, particularly if they're hanging down like this. The leaves won't be straight out. You don't want them too bright, particularly if they're going to be on this side of the thing. The darker side, basically. Making it pop a bit more, which is nice. Hope I haven't done it too bright. Right, I think I'm about done with that bit. I'm going to add some of the lighter green now. Then you don't want to put anywhere near as much there. These are just like dabs of highlights, just to make certain branches look like they're getting hit by the light more than others. Just little dabs of this green still. There you go, I think that might be that for now. So I'm going to switch to this small brush and we're going to use these colours we just mixed to do some of these plants that are just coming up. And you don't want to do anything specific, just like vague suggestions of vines and weeds and plants just growing like here. See, like this. If you need to, feel free to lift up your canvas. Try and make sure these look nice and bright, these things right at the foreground. Need to move that. You can move this forward a bit now there, I think. So there's that. I'm going to add some of the lighter stuff now. Maybe even add white so it's even lighter. See, it's right in front of us, so I want the highlights of it to really pop, to make it look like it's that much closer. See, look, you see. These are just holding it loose, just making slightly random marks, just a suggestion of plants. Just needs slight marks here. So it looks like there's stuff on the floor just ahead of us. But we're going to then smudge it out. This is with the last of stuff on the brush. So we don't want it to be bright or just make it look like there. There you go. I think we're pretty much done, apart from obviously the wiping away this orange, which I may have to pause the thing to do because I don't have the wipe thing with me. Just going to add a little bit to this to make it look more jagged, like it'd fallen off. Snap, the tree's fallen away, maybe even a bit more on this side. And just the occasional black dot in between here to indicate the shadows of this stuff. Just the darker side of some of these bits, because we've got a really light side because of the lighter green, and just a slight dark side to some of them. Right, I think that's basically it now, so I'm going to pause this video and I'm going to wipe it off and then I'll see you in a second. So there you go, I've just wiped off the orange chalk. Look how, there you go, pretty much finished there. You can add little bits if you want. If you wanted to, you could always add some colour to these, like the little wildflowers. I'd be very tempted myself to add tiny specks of white just to them here, like this. Just to properly make it pop in the foreground. Nothing too much, nothing too crazy. Just tiny touches like that. Because I saw this and I like these bits where it looks slightly lighter. After all, this is a very bright day. Even in an area where there's snow, because of the colour of the sky and all that. Nice to showcase that. Even adding some flowers. I mean, to be honest, what would look really nice here is some pink flowers. I'm not going to do that because I didn't do it here, but if you wanted to add anything else to it, that would be maybe a nice touch. There you go, it looks like maybe there's dandelions or or something weird like that just here. So there you go, that's me done for this video. I'd love to see how yours turned out, so feel free to contact me at Robbie Potter Art on social media, at Robbie Potter Art. You can check out some of my original paintings at robbiepotterart.com. You know, get in touch with me there if you're interested, or see what potential artworks I have for sale. If you like this video and you think, I like what this guy does, maybe I'll buy a painting. Maybe, why not? Why not? It'd be kind of good for me. Good to see something like this. You see the process of it. You get this lesson for free. I do have other classes on my channel at you know, YouTube channel Robbie Paints. Do like, subscribe, and all that sort of stuff, and enjoy, you know. Hope you've enjoyed this class, this lesson. This is a beautiful view. It was good fun to paint, got a variety of stuff in. I don't know how yours turned out. I hope, like I say, do let me know, do contact me on the social media, share which your images or whatever. I'd love to see how yours turned out of this. I like this one's got more earthy colours for me. This one's a bit brighter. It depends what your preferences are. I'm looking at them both, trying to decide which one I like more. I'm not sure, but you know, that's art, innit? People have different opinions. Some things are better in different contexts, but overall the view is still lovely, and I would love to be there looking at this mountain. So I said I'd love to have painted this in person. It'd be pretty damn cool. But you know, we've got this, and it's been nice. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'm going to say goodbye now because I'm rambling, and I hope to see you in the next video at Robbie Paints. Enjoy.